Welcome to our 5 on 5. Pleased to be joined today by Matt Brinkley, the Planning Director for the City of Medford. Matt, good to see you again. How are you?
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So the city is hosting a meeting tomorrow night to talk about rent burden and some of the things that's being done kind of at the state level to maybe try and figure this out. Before we get into those details, what is the state of housing right now in Medford?
Well, if you've been looking for a house either to buy or to rent, you probably know all too well that it's expensive. There's not a lot available. And because there's not a lot available, it continues to be expensive and gets more and more expensive with each year.
And how is the city working to address this?
So the city has been working very aggressively on this over the past year since the fall of 2017. We created a housing advisory committee to come up with some solutions to address affordability and availability and to look at housing at all income levels, because we know that we have a shortage of housing for middle-income families, lower-income families, but even families that are, upper middle income as well. So we're really facing a lack of housing at all those income levels, and that makes things just less affordable for everybody. Mm-hmm. So recently, the city has passed an SDC deferral program, so that's system development charges. That are ordinarily collected at the time of issuance of a building permit are now collected at the time of occupancy or sale of a home. That means that builders and developers don't have to absorb those costs initially when they go to build a home, and the goal of that is to try to encourage builders to build more housing. So we've also created an affordable housing construction excise tax, which is a 0.3% tax on building permits. We accumulate those funds, and then we'll use those funds to support housing projects that are affordable to households up to 120% of the area family income here in Medford.
Okay, and so we're talking about this meeting tomorrow. What time? The city of Medford's hosting the meeting. What time is the meeting?
It's at 5:30.
Okay, at 5:30.
Yep.
Where exactly?
And it'll be at the library.
Oh, okay, at the public library.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And this is really about trying to get people who are rent burdened to come share their stories, so the city and other agencies there can send it up to the state level.
That's exactly right. So HB 4006 requires that cities over 10,000 with a rent burden problem, which is basically every city in the state of Oregon, that we have these listening sessions so we get more information from people who are directly affected by rent burden, and we come to understand the nuances of the problem that go beyond just the simple kind of statistics that we can see in the data that we collect.
Okay, well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have much more in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. We're going to hear with Matt Brinkley, the Planning Director for the City of Medford. So we're talking about this meeting you guys are hosting tomorrow night at the Medford Library, 5:30, talking about rent burden and what you guys are seeing locally. Going to gather a bunch of information, send it up to the state level. I got to ask, what is severely rent burdened? What's the definition?
So you're considered to be rent burdened if you pay 30% or more of your income, your gross income, toward rent. You're severely rent burdened if you pay 50% or more. And unfortunately, we see that in Medford, throughout this entire region, that a lot of households fall into that category. So again, as vacancy goes down, there are fewer rental units available, rents go up, and more households, unfortunately, fall into one of those categories.
Okay, and you mentioned in part one of the interview, you have the data. Everyone seems to have that, certainly in this business. But this is a listening session. You want to hear the stories from people who are dealing with these things. What other agencies are going to be there? So
we'll also have the Housing Authority of Jackson County and Access there to talk about rent burden from their perspective. Obviously, the Housing Authority of Jackson County is very closely involved in addressing this issue for folks who have lower income. And Access obviously deals very closely with this issue as well. So we'll present a little information from our perspective, but like you said before, it's really about listening to folks who are directly affected by rent burden, because there are a lot of different elements to this problem that we don't necessarily capture in the numbers. Okay, and so yeah, it's going to collate that information, send it up to the state level. I know we talked about this in Klamath Falls last week. There's several communities who are doing this. It's really about getting the information up to the state level. Maybe something can be done. Yeah, and we want to make sure that the solution is going to be a good solution, that it's going to fit the local conditions here, and that's why we have these listening sessions.
Okay, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks a lot.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back.